This is us raw dogging everything.
Let's go.
Trying to make everything work.
And that is now recorded. Us raw dogging everything.
Going to actually play around with the whole model of actually doing almost a free roll
Yeah.
just before the podcast, because I think I don't take myself too seriously.
The B-roll of just like all the bloopers and stuff.
Exactly. You know what's so weird? I was fucking thinking about Gabby Momint yesterday. Weird, just get. I'm sure Ahren Posthumus.
Ahren Posthumus.
Ahren.
Ahren, yeah. Because it's with an A. Weird.
All right. Right. You are the founder and CEO
Yep.
at Momint.
Yep.
Just give me a little background.
Sure. So my background is actually in cybersecurity. So I studied at the University of Cape Town. I did computer science, business science, and information systems. Right out of university, I started my career in cybersecurity at a firm called MWR. My main role was finding vulnerabilities and developing exploits for banks and telcos. So we find weaknesses in their systems and then help them fix it. Really, really fun job, really cool. Got my certified ethical hacker certification. Then moved over to Jumo, which was really amazing for me. They're a startup that does mobile money lending across Africa. So that gave me a really good insight into the banking landscape and the payments landscape across Africa. And all this time, had been doing other side hustle and stuff. Like the regular routine would be like 9 to 5 Jumo, then 5 to 6 gym, then 6 to 3 a.m. like coding you have to, right? And then till 3 a.m. like smashing code, building some like solution or startup. We tried to build an app to solve the youth unemployment problem. We did Lockdown Boza, which was a huge success. Sorry, I keep saying we. It's myself and Adam, my co-founder.
Did you meet?
Met him at university, actually. So we had been building from the university time, through the MWR time, through the Jumo time, always building together. No, just like as friends. Yeah, it was awesome.
See, that were always trying to essentially escape the whole kind of corporate life.
I wouldn't say escape, actually. Like, it was part of my plan to work for like in corporate for 5 years and then jump ship after the 5-year mark. And actually the startup life just crept up on us and forced us to quit a lot sooner. So I think I quit like 3 or 4 years into that journey.
You were waiting to start a startup, but you had a 5-year plan to actually work in corporate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know anyone that has like a 5-year plan. That still sounds like too hectic. So what was the whole idea around the types of jobs you were looking for at that stage, and did you know what you wanted to work on? Or?
So look, man, if you go and look statistically at the most successful startup founders, every single one of them has a corporate background. And maybe I'm over exaggerating that a little bit. But our first investor, Rob Hersop, actually did a podcast where he spoke about how I made my first $1 million, right? And obviously he comes from wealth, but still the lessons are integral. And he actually recommended, and I saw this after the fact, but he recommends that every startup founder first do a couple of years at an investec, PwC, whatever. And I'll tell you the reason why. And the reason why I wanted to do it was two things. I come from a very poor background. So the first thing was I wanted to have a strong, stable financial base. So I needed to support my mother. I needed to support a couple other people in my family. I'm not going to do that on a founder's salary, right? Because a founder, I believe, you shouldn't be extracting a lot of value for as long as you possibly can.
Yeah.
So I needed to build up a financial base. The second thing is experience. I've noticed a lot of young startup founders, and I love supporting young startup founders, but when you come into the space, you lack a level of professionalism because you haven't seen it before. It's not from a lack of trying. It's just when you go into corporate, it's sort of it's whacked into you. You know, this meetings need to have agendas, for example, small thing. That saves so much time in your journey as a startup.
But did you understand that, like, kind of as a young person trying to make it in life, like that, okay, I need to have discipline, I need to have some level of experience. Do you understand the intricacies, or did you just kind of sum it up to, I just need to have some experience, or were you that you understood the details of?
I definitely understood that I wanted to have a strong experiential base to build from.
Yeah.
That was definitely a strong component, but perhaps the strongest, so maybe 60% of the reason was just the financial reason, honestly. And I think that's strong enough.
No, I heard something that was saying, I can't remember, I think it's farming.
Yes. Yeah, I love Alex.
I think you kind of have to use, work with what you have, and a lot of it is just kind of like fear and anxiety, and like necessarily convert that into energy. So I do 100% relate and agree with what you're saying. So how's the journey going so far?
Yo, man.
Not going into what Momint is up, we'll see that. But
Sure. Yeah, man. So, I mean, just talking about that financial base, even though I jumped ship a little bit sooner than according to the plan, I didn't do the 5 years. I left Jumo at year 2, actually, at being at Jumo. Left a lot of equity that would have been vesting on the table. They've got a 5-year equity vesting plan. And then
early stage, where you started Jumo.
I mean, it depends on how you look at things, right? Yeah. So I think there were like 200 and something staff at that stage already. So not necessarily very early stage, but I was very early into their security team.
Yeah.
And sort of we had a really tight-knit small security team that ensured that everything was secure for one, but also that there was ISO 27001 compliance. I mean, tons of compliance certificates that you've got to achieve. Anyways, getting sidetracked here. So when I did quit at Jumo to run Ebony, which was our dev agency that Adam and I ran together, both of us had to not pay ourselves a salary for 4 months. We planned on 3 and it ended up being 4. So really it is important to have that financial base. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I had bond repayments and everything still coming off out of the account every month. So, but I think it's one of those psychological hacks, right? Like the most successful people in the world are the ones that are running towards something and away from something.
Yeah.
You have both, right? So you're running away from bankruptcy because there's debit orders coming off, and you're running towards like a success or a vision that you have as well. And I think you need both. So motivation isn't a question then, because when your vision is a little bit hazy, you've still got this beast behind you chasing you forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it impulsive or was it planned? Like you planned it for 6 months before you actually left, or was it just, okay, I can't do this anymore?
No. I love my job. It was a difficult decision. So I wasn't one of those guys like, I really need to get out of corporate or whatever. Like Jumo was an awesome company. And I really enjoyed my job. I think I enjoy the things that I do in general. It wasn't impulsive. Adam and I discussed it for a long time. So he actually quit his job first. And we started Ebony. So I was working on Ebony after hours and he was working on it full time. And we were actually splitting my salary between the two of us. So there's a lot of trust you have to have with your co-founder. And I'm very fortunate to say that I had that. He's current co-founder in Momint as well. And yeah, we did that for a little while and then just decided, well, okay, the question is, why did I jump ship? And it's because Ebony was growing so quickly. We had too many projects, a lot of exciting projects to work on, a lot of big things to do. And I think on both sides, things were starting to feel a little bit like uneven or not weighted properly, right? It's difficult to ascertain because I'm earning a salary that's like helping us both live, but Adam was doing all the hard work on the startup, on the initial stages. So it's like very difficult to weight. And we discussed it a lot and eventually concluded like it's going to be way better if we both just dive full on headfirst into this.
Yeah. But there was still an element of risk when...
Absolutely.
You're saying you couldn't even take a salary?
So we chose not to take a salary. So we had work, we had projects coming in, and we chose instead to invest in adding developers to the team. So from day one, like scale is a consideration.
Yeah.
So I would rather not take a salary, and Adam as well, to get another team member or another 2 team members, and then we can go and get another project. And that project can maybe pay our salaries, right? But if you can put that off for another month, then you can hire another team member and get a new project. You know what I mean? So it's about adding capacity to your scale.
I need to check something.
You want to make sure you're actually recording.
Okay, cool. All right, yeah, sure. All right, that's really interesting. And then how
Not very big. So we got to, I think it was about six developers. And then we had like an HR, and so small team, smaller than 10 people.
Yeah.
And what we did basically was we helped people. We built software. Obviously, that's what a dev house does. But we did a little bit more than that. We dived into what is a problem that you're trying to solve. How can we test your hypotheses really quickly?
Yeah.
And we sort of began specializing in creating MVPs for customers. And I think that's what drove a lot of the demand. So a lot of the customers were coming to us saying, they've gotten quotes from all the dev houses in Cape Town. It's going to be a 6 to 8 month build cycle and a couple million rands. That was the very normal thing that everyone said. And we were like, okay. We can't guarantee that we'll be cheaper, but we'll be cheaper at first for sure, and we'll be a lot quicker. So instead of that sort of waterfall approach, let's look at it. Let's take a view to say, how can we test your most core hypothesis within 2 weeks at a much cheaper price tag, because we're not building a whole beast of a system. We're just testing one hypothesis with the tech that we're building. And from there, we can iterate and build on it, and either build on that product and make it everything you want it to be, or we can quickly find that some of the assumptions are wrong and pivot the direction.
Yeah. Let's go back to in younger days before you even started any of this stuff.
Okay.
5-year plan.
Cool.
And what inspired the idea around, or got you excited about entrepreneurship? Because I think entrepreneurship is not a big thing in South Africa. I think
difficult questions.
It's easy to be an entrepreneur in some other place like America, but then in South Africa, it's not full. I think everyone's kind of basing their whole lives around the security of a job.
Yep.
So why?
So, I mean, first of all, I think that view of it's easy to be an entrepreneur in America is a little bit distorted, right? So we consume Western media, which puts all the winners at the top, and then we think that that's sort of the system. I do agree that fundraising is definitely easier in the US.
Easier, I think there's more of a culture of entrepreneurship.
Oh, in that sense, 100%, I agree with you.
Because I think everyone in the States knows what entrepreneurship is, and to some extent, a lot of people aspire to that. But in South Africa, it's not so much, because all of our billionaires and successful people are kind of from
they're from mining, or
it's so inaccessible to the vast majority of people. But in the US, there's a lot of these
come from nothing, stories, And I think the biggest thing is they celebrate that.
Yeah.
Right? What I've noticed in South Africa is when people start winning, the overarching feeling is jealousy or, negative sort of feedback. Whereas in America, they really celebrate and uplift each other's wins, which is something I think we as South Africans really need to do, right? And I try to emulate that in my everyday life, right? I'm rooting for absolutely every founder that I interact with, that I come across. I'm super rooting for you guys. The more success each one of us has, the better our economy is going to be, the better the ecosystem is going to be, the more opportunity there will be for everyone, right? Yeah. So anyways, you asked the question, where did that entrepreneurial sort of streak come from? And the reason why I say it's a difficult question to answer is because I've always kind of been doing it. So I got in trouble in grade 3 for selling guns at school. Not really. BB guns. BB guns for school.
It's pretty profitable.
Yeah, my mom made the mistake of taking me to Chinatown. Apparently, I negotiated like a really, really shrewd businessman with the Chinese desk attendant, and bought 100 rands worth of BB guns. I remember it clearly. The price per unit came down to 3 rand 50 per unit, and I was selling them for 15 rand a back. Obviously got in trouble at school because people were shooting each other left, right, and center. I then pivoted to selling the service just to fix the guns that were already out in the ecosystem, because I had some spare parts now because I wasn't allowed to sell them. anyways, and then I moved on from that to doing Drinko Pops. I sold, primary school. So that's why I say, like, how do I answer the question? I've been doing it like almost organically, and maybe it's I'm very, very grateful for my mother. She's an incredible woman, raised 3 kids on her own with only support from my grandparents. And she also started her own business at a huge risk. You know, she had 3 kids depending on her. We were living on like baked beans, and she had like saved up over all of her years, no university degree, like I think it was 5,000 Rand. She started her business with, and started to actually like be okay and be able to support us, which is incredibly inspiring.
And were you, because you earlier on you said you were poor, so were you conscious that you were poor? Is it just in hindsight of
Look, I think I don't want to use the word poor. Also, there's very varying levels. So there's a level of privilege that I'm very aware of, but certainly growing up, we weren't living in excess or abundance. So there were really good decisions that my mom made that gave us a lot of privilege. So, for example, yes, we may not have been able to afford like some school equipment or rackets or whatever, and most of the stuff was hand-me-downs, but she made sure that we lived in an area that was kind of safe and nice. In Joburg, for example. I'm from Kimberley, actually. Yeah, Kimberley.
There's not much going on there.
There's not much going on there for sure. But it's the Diamond City. It was the first city in the world to have street lights.
Yeah.
So it's got a good history. Good place to grow up. Yeah. That's the one thing we got. Yeah.
All right. I don't know how the direction been, but I wanted to actually just kind of fast forward to Momint, because I think we've got a little bit about how did that come about. So you were working on the consulting company. Did it go from the consulting company to Momint?
Correct. Yeah, you've got it. So we were running Ebony. Like I say, getting Ebony. It's too long to dive into. We're going to derail the whole podcast. So yeah, we were running Ebony and we were getting tons of projects, but at the same time, Adam and myself were finding it a little bit frustrating building everyone else's product, right? And dealing with clients. Clients are oftentimes not happy even with the best results, right? We literally had one client where, let's step back in. So we were running Ebony and the Beeple sale happened. $69 million for an NFT.
Yeah.
Now, Adam had been very familiar with the digital asset space. Him and his brother had sold items on the Steam marketplace, so it's definitely not a foreign concept. I had studied advanced cryptography, peer-to-peer networks, which is the foundation for blockchain. And we sort of began like an office debate, in a sense, about the true value of the technology itself. We sort of concluded that the Beeple sale was somewhat bullshit, to be honest, but that there really was an incredible opportunity in the value of the technology that's there, NFTs and blockchain specifically. So as things always did with us, we started discussing the idea, and we discuss it in a way that you sort of build a hypothetical business. I don't know if you do the same thing. You're like, okay, cool, we would market it this way, and we would, have this interface, and this is how we would beat the competition. Like, that's always how we discuss businesses, and then normally we just like move on. It's just a purely hypothetical, fun exercise.
But nothing interesting. I don't do it.
You should. So we built this hypothetical business, and we got so excited about it. There was a tangible moment when we were sitting in the office and we looked at each other and we went like, fuck,
yeah,
we should do this. Like, what are we still talking about? Like, we need to actually do this. But it was one of those ideas that we knew needed fundraising, and we had bootstrapped everything we had done up until that date. I mean, I sold my car for one of the businesses that we tried that didn't work. So I had a business card for Rob Hersoff. He had just like popped in the office one day and left it there. There wasn't any like real strong, meaningful connection. But I decided to phone him up. There's really like hound him, try and pin him down. He said, no, just send me a message. Like, lesson there as well for other founders, like respect other people's time. So phoning him probably wasn't the best idea. Don't take this as a lesson as that the lesson is send the message up front. So I sent him a really nice detailed message that explained what our idea was. It was short but detailed. And apparently he was driving to Hermanus. He's told this story. We've actually got it on our YouTube. He was driving to Hermanus. His wife read it to him, and he was like, holy fuck, this is a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
He wanted to turn around right there, come back, and talk to us. So we had a meeting. He invested on a handshake deal. We launched our MVP 2 weeks later, and we did $22,000 in sales on the first opening weekend. We sold NFTs from Brian Abana, Goldfish, Deepa Khosla, a bunch of sort of local celebrities. The Kifness as well, before his viral TikTok days. So that's really cool. Dan Mace as well.
So what, were you selling it on?
No. We built our own MVP. So we made it like a very simple auction platform. So you could log on, you could make a bid, and you could win the NFT. We also designed and 3D modeled the NFTs for a lot of the creators, and we minted them on the blockchain. So we had to write our own smart contracts and everything. So that period was really, really intense. And if you watch it on the YouTube channel, you can see the bags underneath my eyes are literally like...
Yeah. I've seen on the YouTube channel, and it seems so real. It's like you're taking us on...
No, it is real. It's almost too real. We had investors say that they can't invest because we're too transparent. Like, YouTube, 100% serious. So yeah, there was 4 days there where I didn't sleep at all. Literally 4 days straight. I think I had an hour sleep across that entire 4 days. But at the end of the day, the product was a launch, somewhat success. There were still bugs and issues, but we managed to do the sales, and we took it from there. Initial customers, a lot of them were from India, specifically because we did an AB de Villiers NFT, and cricket is quite a massive pastime in India. So we had about 2,000 users sign up in a day from India because we had a cricket NFT.
What did you understand that allowed you to actually get the first customers? Because you're building up essentially your whole new marketplace and you're minting your own tokens.
Yeah.
So what did you understand that actually got people actually?
I think it's always about problem solving for the customer, right? So we looked at the market at the time. Minting an NFT cost between $50 to $200, depending on how busy the network was. And a lot of people were super, super interested in this space, but they just couldn't afford that. So we said, all right, well, if we can figure out a way to mint NFTs for free, or in a way that we can, front some of the cost and recoup it at a later stage, maybe when someone sells their artwork or whatever, then we're solving a huge problem in the market right now. There's thousands and thousands of customers who want to mint their NFTs, but they can't pay the upfront gas fees.
Yeah.
So we were actually the first marketplace in the world to offer completely open free minting. So anybody could come to the marketplace, mint an NFT and not pay a cent.
But then don't you incur costs for...
Yeah.
What called this? What's the word?
Building a business is about risk, man. We took some risk, but we solved in a really cool technical way, right? So our cost, the risk that we were taking was enormously small, to be honest with you. Every mint costs 0.0001 cent. Three zeros. Gas fees, yeah. So that was because we used this incredible blockchain called Gnosis, Gnosis. Gnosis is a super, super powerful blockchain. It's really well known in developer circles. It's not that well known to the public because they don't spend money on marketing, their chain. They spend all their time and effort into making sure that they've got the best chain in the world. So we had that. Then we optimized the standard NFT contracts. So there was a lot of room for optimization in those contracts because this is still early days. And when I say optimization, I mean making the transactions cheaper, effectively. So we used a good chain, we made transactions cheaper, and then we staked we participated on the network. So how blockchain works is you earn currency for providing computing power, basically. So we provided computing power and earned currency, and that offset some of our minting costs. And then what we did was when the artists sold their work, we would keep 15% of the proceeds. So 15% is a lot lower than every other creator platform. I mean, Twitch is 50% basically. I don't know what OnlyFans and some of the others are, but they're all quite high, 25% above. So we felt like we were still doing a good thing for the creators there. But that 15% that we took could pay for another 30 other creators to mint their artworks on average. We've now subsequently reduced our fees to 1.1%, actually. But yeah, that's how we started, man.
Yeah. And then what is Momint today?
So what Momint is today is, again, from the beginning, like I said, we were like, there's true value in this technology.
Yeah.
And we found that the real value there is putting legal contracts and real assets on the blockchain, right? So there's two angles to it actually three that I'm really passionate about. One is, and all of them fall under self-sovereignty or like control of your own data, control of your own assets, control of your own money. All of them fall under that. But the one is being able to make payments and control your own money. So that's the crypto sort of element. And that's only one side of blockchain. The second one is putting legal contracts and assets on the blockchain. So what we do now, for example, is with Suncash, we crowdfund solar installations. So you get a solar certificate that proves your ownership of solar cells, and that earns you revenue passively on a monthly basis. Suncash is just the name of the initiative for what I'm describing here. Under Momint, yeah.
And is it on the Momint platform?
Correct.
Is it just like a page that you're going?
Yes, yeah. It's on the Momint platform. So you can invest in these solar cells. They're sitting on a real rooftop. Someone's paying for the electricity that it generates every month, and that money gets paid back to you as the owner of the cell.
Yeah.
And then the third element is owning your own data and your own content. So if you're an artist, a creator, a musician, whatever, when you post things on Instagram, you're giving it to Facebook, to Zuckerberg or whatever. They now fully own it. They choose whether it exists or doesn't. And basically you're giving away your IP in many senses. But when you mint your own content as an NFT, you can choose to monetize it or not monetize it. You can add royalties. And in 200 years' time, if someone's wondering who created this, there will be an audit trail and they can find that you were the one who created that piece of work, which is a really incredible technology, I think. So, and all of this is achieved through blockchain.
Okay. And then seems like some of this seems like, well, I understand the technology of blockchain, but it seems like some of the applications are somewhat kind of polarized in the sense that one's selling blocks in solar projects, and then the other is artwork. How do you communicate your brand effectively so that people actually understand what Momint?
We're still figuring that out. Yeah, honestly, we're still figuring that out. It's difficult, right? Because it's a new paradigm that people need to, grow accustomed to. Africa is the leading adopter of blockchain in the world. So we're definitely on the right continent. Yeah, really it is. South Africa and Nigeria are actually number 1 and 2 in the world. So we're definitely in the right place and people do understand it better here. But the way that we communicate is through different hooks, basically, right? So Suncash has its own website. If you're interested in taking advantage of the opportunity that exists right now with investing in solar, then you find that organically. You buy a solar cell on that website, and then it hooks you into Momint, and Momint is the wallet where you hold that asset. And then you're like, oh, okay, I can hold assets here. I can have a wallet, and I can send. That's like a hook. It's a wallet. It's a wallet.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
All in all, it's a wallet.
And can you use Momint to hold other cryptos?
Correct. Yeah, you can hold ETH on Momint and USDC right now.
Okay, that's really interesting.
And the big benefit of the way we do it is we're not an exchange, so we generate a unique wallet for every user that's secured by their own password. So if we go under tomorrow, your funds are still secure. They're still sitting in your wallets, secured by your password, and they're not part of our operational funds like, FTX or, many other exchanges.
How does that actually work? How does if someone's assets actually stay theirs and don't get disrupted if Momint had to go under?
Yeah, so that really comes down to fundamentally the blockchain is a ledger. And the ledger says you, John, own $100 USDC. And that's set out in the ledger. If you make a payment of 50 to someone else, it gets reported in the ledger. And this ledger is spread out over thousands of computers all over the world. So if you want to lie about that or say, cool, I'm going to send 200 to Ahren, every ledger in the world can verify that you don't actually have 200 in your account. Yeah. Does that make sense? Now you can do the same thing with assets, right? So you can say, cool, this creator created this asset on this date, and here's a pointer to what that asset is. Then on this date, somebody else bought it. Now they're the owner. So that ownership record always exists on chain. And because every one of our users has their own wallet, ownership is uniquely given to them and to their account. And if we go under, your wallet still exists. It lives on the blockchain. It doesn't live with us. We're like a really nice interface to the blockchain because it's really complicated. So we make it nice and simple and easy to look at. But the actual account doesn't live with us.
Yeah.
We just give you an easy way to leverage the blockchain, a nice front end to interact with the blockchain.
And but then you aren't an exchange in a sense that people can't withdraw their money.
No. So they can't buy cryptos or sell their cryptos on Momint. That would be what an exchange does. And the way that an exchange does that is that when you deposit your money in an exchange, they pool it all together, which is the big red flag that you kind of want to avoid in the crypto space, because then if they go under, they take the pool with them.
What's a good practices for?
Good practices for an exchange are, if they do pool funds like Binance does, then you ring fence those funds away from your operational expenses, and you have proof of reserves as well. So you release like a report basically that shows your users that you've got enough reserve. If everyone wants to draw their money tomorrow, you've got enough to pay it out.
Oh,
with us, we don't do reserve, so we don't have to worry about that.
How the flow of money goes, it be crypto, but essentially they're operating as a bank, essentially, because they
correct.
Will be able to take it.
It's exactly like a bank, and the bank doesn't hold all of your money in their safes. Actually, they they pull your money together and then they lend it out, and they only keep, like, let's say 5%. Fractional reserve banking. That's it. We don't do that.
Yeah.
Web3.
the solar panels are more Suncash.
Yep.
Because that's, I think, how I got to connect with you, and I was found that really, really exciting because of obviously the state of the country right now.
Yeah.
How's that initiative been going on, and what are the goals for that?
Man, the uptake has been really, really incredible. And I feel like, again, it just reinforces my view of like how great South Africa is, how much potential Africa has, and how much of a community-driven approach we really do have. So we launched our first project, which was for a school, in collaboration with another company who did this and has been doing this for a number of years. And immediately everybody bought up their solar cells to fund solar for the school. So now the school never faces load shedding. All the kids can use their computers. They can carry on studying. They have lights. So it's a really great use case. And so Suncash's initiative is a not-for-profit initiative. So we are loss-making right now, and likely will be for a long time. It's more about proving to people, hey, this is why blockchain is really incredible and cool, and it solves real-world problems. Because for a long time, people have been trying to sort of shoehorn the technology into places where it doesn't really solve a big problem, right? Like, I mean, tickets is one of the examples people talk about all the time. Ticketing NFTs. There are reasons why it's good. Yeah. And maybe it's 2 times better than the existing system. But 2 times better, we know from a startup space, it's like not investable, man. 10x better is what you need. Minimum 10x better. And I can say with certainty that is the case with crowdfunding for real assets like this. Like, where could you go as a man on the street and just say, cool, I want to invest in a solar farm. Yeah. like a massive, massive solar farm.
Yeah.
Where could you go and do that? There's like almost nowhere, and the barriers are super high. And then where's the transparency as well? Like, how do you know what you've invested in, whether the returns are real, all of that stuff? With us, you're investing in a specific project at a specific location. You know where it is. All of the legal contracts are embedded within your tokens. You can go through them and read them at any time. Anybody can actually. They live on the blockchain. They're immutable. We can't change them suddenly just if we feel like it. And all the payments are transparent as well. So when we do a payment, we actually send you a link to that payment record on Polyscan or Etherscan, and you can see all of the payout records. Yeah. So that there's a lot of transparency that comes in there. And that's why I'm really passionate about it. Obviously, we were suffering immense load shedding. Joburg had a 30-day load shedding cycle. Not 30 days, 30 hours, my bad. A 30-hour load shedding cycle in one go. So no breaks in between. Things are not looking great in terms of energy in the country. And energy is my stance is we can't build a tech company in a country without power, without electricity. Technology needs electricity fundamentally.
It really pisses you off. I was actually at an event last time at the CTRC, the Cape Convention Center. And like the guys from ESCOM were speaking, and they just seem
oblivious. Yeah,
oblivious. And it's like, for them it's a joke. For them it's about maintaining power, but then they don't actually really see the effects it has on people, and if they do, they just don't care. And it's like,
it's so detrimental to the economy, man. Think about all the restaurants that are closed. Think about all of the businesses that can't make sales. Like, and maybe if you come from a business background, you hear that and it like pisses you off, and you're like, yeah, we need that, right? But if you don't understand the value of why we need an economy, why we need businesses making sales, and why that actually saves lives, then I can tell you there's other issues, right? Like there's schools where the kids are literally coming out with lower grades because they can't study, because they don't have power, they don't have lights to even read their textbooks. There are hospitals that are losing power and people are dying. People in homes who were on ventilators or machines, so they're not even in a hospital. When there's load shedding, somebody has to either sit there and pump them manually by hand, or that person dies. Like, this problem, it couldn't be overstated enough. It is absolutely astounding that we live at a time in the 21st century where we're allowing people to die because we couldn't just maintain a very basic, stable electricity grid. But I think the tax incentives that have come out are incredibly useful, and they've been helping accelerate the rollout of renewable energies across the country. So if you don't know what the tax incentive is, it's 12B, 25% tax rebate for individuals, 125% tax rebate for companies. Yeah, absolutely. So a company comes to us and says, I'm going to buy up a whole bunch of solar cells. They get a 12B tax benefit. So essentially they get the cells for free in some ways because it's 125%.
The process of doing that.
You make a payment and you get your cells.
And
you get it. You get an invoice and you submit that to SARS. And
that's simple.
It's that simple. And then for the next 20 years, that solar installation will continue to earn you revenue.
So you think this is also available for individuals?
It's also available for individuals, yes.
Okay, so when you're doing your e-filing, you just submit.
Correct.
Okay, and all right, that's interesting. I didn't actually know that. I thought it was a whole complicated process.
I'm glad that you said that, because it brings me joy every time someone goes like, "Oh, I thought this was complex, but it's easy." That's my goal. That's my mission. Need to make it as simple as possible.
You said it's a 25% rebate.
Correct. Yeah. Just so you know, you won't get that on the secondary market. So if you buy any solar cells on the secondary market, then they're not eligible for your tax rebate anymore.
Oh, that's it. So there's a tax rebate, and then is there also compounding or interest that?
So they generate about a 12% yield on average. That's not pegged or set or guaranteed. It depends on how much power the solar cells generate. But generally they're on a 20-year PPA or power purchase agreement. So if it's with a body corporate or a school, for example, that school is agreeing to say, I'll buy my electricity from you for the next 20 years.
Oh, okay.
instead of buying it from Eskom.
Okay. So you'd essentially build, you'd have a solar project, and basically that solar project, let's say you're building a solar farm, would have customers that are actually extracting energy from
Correct.
from the project, and then basically the investors get paid from whatever income comes from that.
Correct.
Wow, that's a really cool model. Just a really cool model. But you're saying it's also not guaranteed in terms of how much money they would be able to generate.
Depends on the yield of the cells. And what we do to try and guarantee or bolster that yield as much as possible is the engineering company who built it is actually under an operations and maintenance contract for that 20-year term. And they receive a percentage of the revenue from the cells as well. So they're incentivized to keep it running at the highest possible yield because that increases their own revenue too. Obviously, it increases the investors' revenue as well. So that's a core piece of the puzzle, because right now, engineering companies or solar installers across South Africa, their goals are to do the next project. And we're seeing a lot of those guys are cutting corners. They're not doing a proper installation because they don't care how much yield you get from your solar cell. They just need to do every next project.
Yeah.
So we had to make sure that we're, first of all, working with trusted, established providers, not guys who just spun up this year. And secondly, that they're incentivized in the same way as our investors. So they get a portion of the revenue that the cells produce over 20 years. And if it's performing badly, their revenue is doing badly. If it's performing well, their revenue is performing well. So they're now fully aligned with the investors to do the best possible installation they can to maintain the installation at the highest possible level that they can.
So it's essentially like a company that each project is a.
Yeah, I want to coin a new term because I think NFT was a really bad acronym. The new acronym that I want to coin over time, you've heard it here first, folks, is PIGA, passive income generating asset. Because passive income generating assets do exist out there, and passive income is a little bit of an elusive myth, right? There's no, Gary Vee speaks about, there's no real passive income. But this is how the wealthy have become wealthy and stayed wealthy over the years, is they acquire the means of production, right? So like machinery, a solar cell will continue to produce energy and money for you, even if you're taking a midday nap, right? So in some senses, it is a passive income generating asset. You can say the same thing if you have a piece of equipment that produces pencils, or whatever that machinery and those assets are. I think it's a high time that we make those types of assets more accessible to the general public so that we can have a more democratic opportunity base, especially in the country, so that they're not exclusively available only to the rich who can afford high upfront capex.
Jeez, that's really cool. And then in terms of the barriers to entry, how does one actually start investing in sun cash and get involved in this solar project?
So we try to make it as simple as possible. You go to suncash.co.za, add a solar cell to your cart, whichever size or bundles you want to own. So you can own a single solar cell for 85 Rand. So really cheap, super accessible. It's the price of a Kauai wrap. You might as well dip your toes. Or you can go all the way up to buying a full solar panel for 18,000 Rand. And then on a quarterly basis, we pay out your returns.
Yeah. And then can you see the project that you...
Absolutely. And all of the information is embedded into the token. There's a ton of information that's transparently available. So you can see exactly how many solar cells there are, how many panels were installed, who did the installation, the exact latitude and longitude of the installation. So you can go visit it yourself if you want to. The only one that's not true for is we did a gender-based violence safe house. So that's a safe house. Obviously, you don't want to reveal the location of the safe house. That's a security risk. So that's the only project that's slightly different in that respect.
Essentially, you actually own the actual cell. It's not just...
Correct. And I don't want to I don't want to understate that at all. It took a lot of legal work for us to get that right. We pioneered a brand new legal contract called a DASA that essentially acts as a bearer token. Do you know what bearer assets are?
No.
So bearer assets are you can get a piece of paper that says you own this bearer instrument. And why it's called a bearer instrument is because whoever is the bearer is the beneficiary. So if you hold that piece of paper, and it used to be this way for like property, for example, in the old American West, if you hold the title deed, then the property is yours. Doesn't matter if you like killed someone and got it, or if you won it in a bar bet, right? So this is similar in that respect. If you own the token, you own the underlying asset. You can send that token to your mom or your sister or a friend. Maybe you lose it in a bet. As soon as you send it to them, they are now the owner. The legal contract enforces that. Exactly. And it enforces that across 160 jurisdictions across the world. So you could even be in the UK and you could go, hey, I own this asset. Will a court of law enforce this for me? And they'll go, yes.
When they get the contract, are they actually just signing with like an e-signature and stuff like that to actually?
You don't have to sign or anything. You own it by owning it. You own it by holding it. Like that's where the bearer component comes in.
But it's also recognized by all this.
Yeah, so it's supported by Old English law, which permeates across most jurisdictions in the world. There's obviously some sanctioned states that we don't support for obvious reasons. We don't want to support terrorism, etc. And then the US has a very strong, specific view on digital assets right now. I think, to be honest, it's outdated and archaic. Regulation is good, and I'm in favor of regulation. Protects customers, but the US isn't quite there yet. And a lot of people think that's where we'll go. But actually, if you look at the rest of the world, we're going in the opposite direction. The UK has very favorable digital asset legislation. The UAE actually already runs a third of their government on blockchain. They're super progressive. South Africa has very favorable and well-established law for digital assets, and many other countries. Singapore, I mean, the list could go on.
And right now, because I'm just thinking about Suncash, and like, is it partly only accessible through the Momint platform, or do you also, or are there any other partners that you work with currently that will enable people to buy through it?
So we are the sole propagator, or like the initiator of the project. So you buy them from us either through suncash.co.za or on the Momint platform directly. Those are the two places where you can get them. I mean, it may change in the future, but just to be clear, these are digital assets, which means you can send them to your MetaMask wallet. You can send them to OpenSea. You can go and trade them on another marketplace afterwards. It is yours. And that's really important. But no, you can only buy them right now from Momint.
Yeah. And then in terms of the current.
Cool. Yeah, we've got a great pipeline of projects ahead of us. We've got one project that I'm quite excited about. It's a dairy milk alternative factory. So, I mean, factories are always something that I get passionate about because, again, it drives that economy really, really well. We've actually got a correctional services one as well. We've got a couple of schools, some churches, and we've got a couple more GBB centers that we're going to do as well. So a really nice big backlog of great projects to work on.
That sounds really exciting. What does the future look like for Suncash? What is the future?
So for Suncash, the primary goal right now really is to solve the energy crisis in South Africa. And I don't actually know if that sounds overly ambitious or under ambitious, right? South Africa is just one small little country on this massive globe. Surely we could attract investment here and solve the problem. I certainly think we can.
I think we all have vested interest in.
Absolutely.
Why aren't people actually investing?
I think people don't know about it, for one. For two, there is absolute skepticism, justified skepticism, man. We've seen a ton of crypto companies fall in the last year and a bit. To be clear, we're not a crypto company, we're a blockchain company. But still, I think it's justified skepticism. And I'm not mad at it. We're just going to continue to build trust, show the transparency of our payments, and over time, people will get to realizing that it's legitimate, right? Like we've appeared in reports from Emogo and PwC, Standard Bank and CVVC released a report as well that talks about us. So you build up the sort of history behind you, just like a bank had to, in previous years, and then people will awaken to it. But I wouldn't say people aren't buying. I'll be honest with you, we have more capital committed right now than we have projects. So we've got about 360 million rand committed, and we've got about just over 100 million rand in projects to roll out. So people definitely are buying.
Of like in 5 years of everything that's actually had to go well, what consumer behaviors do you expect to see, and do you expect expect people to actually be investing in these solar projects, like they would any?
So definitely yes. I can see. I think part of the question is like, what's the goal? Like, what are we aiming for? What are we shooting for? Like I said, I'm definitely shooting to solve the load shedding problem. If everything goes well in 5 years' time, we have no more load shedding, and the people of South Africa become Eskom. So what I mean by that is there's so many people who own this collective infrastructure, and we all earn the revenue from that collective infrastructure. It's almost a more efficient way of running sort of that aim of the government, or that arm of the government, right? Because remember, Eskom's a state-owned entity, and it's supposed to be for the benefit of the people. So if we have a bunch of people owning these assets, we as a community are providing power to our schools, our body corporates.
Real.
Well, that's it. It's a good podcast. Well, perfect wrap up. Well, it was gonna be a perfect wrap up, but
Yeah.
anyways.
It would have, because I was gonna go in. So what was I going to? Your ask to like the South African public, and what kind of support do you need from just the people? So obviously,
You know what you can do that works really, really well? I've seen other YouTubers do it.
Right.
Is you can just speak afterwards, be like, and then the battery died.
Yeah.
But what we finished was blah, 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 blah. So you can still give the wrap up, and that usually flows perfectly. What I was going to end off my statement with was basically like the goal is that we as a society own our own infrastructure, and that we benefit from it. And then it would be really cool to see people starting to do their own projects on other stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why don't we collectively crowdfund a train station that'll make transportation better for a specific region? Or why don't we crowdfund water infrastructure that sanitizes our water properly? A group of people own it and manage it and, get the benefit, and it's for the benefit of the whole of society. That would be my goal for things to go well. Momint's overall mission is to get 1 billion people to own digital assets that are worth owning. Worth owning is very important.
Yeah.
I don't want everyone just to have little pictures of rocks.
Sure. I mean,
I should see that.
are you leaving?
Yeah, it's back to back for me. Sorry, man. Yeah.
That's actually anyway. They are actually will see me in Joburg or Rugby's back in.
It's all. Yeah, that's
So nice. Yeah, man. Can you feel on?